G'day, g'day, and welcome to GitGo. Bernie, Zelvis, the beautiful Billy Marshall Stoneking, and Goldie the cat.
Goldie the cat.
Goldie the cat. If you hear a big purr, it's this very happy pussy cat who we've decided is our GitGo. Well, I decided is our GitGo pet. You all right with that, fellas?
Yep. That's a purr that they're going on there, isn't it?
So happy to be here today. We're back in Bondi, actually, and I'm just going to get rid of that.
So we're going to get a new video here because we've been talking to Marco.
We have. Marco's in New York, and he's been talking to both Newell, who's the director and also cinematographer of fantastic Gayby Baby, which is doing gangbusters. What is it on iTunes at the moment, guys?
Yeah,
Number four. Billy was the executive producer. Don't go thinking that because it's number 4 on iTunes that Billy's suddenly rich. It doesn't quite work like that. We'll talk about filmmaking stuff a little later.
Totally.
But it's still pretty exciting, isn't it, Billy?
Yeah. And producer Charlotte Mars.
Charlotte Mars, of course.
Maya and Marco in New York as well.
So how long are they in New York doing the big
they've
promo?
been there for about a week because it's opening in many, many theaters there and also in the UK and Ireland. And yeah. But this is kind of like becoming something that they just do, you know. It's been doing the festival circuit for about 12 months and playing everywhere. London Film Festival and, Los Angeles and you name it. Sydney Film Festival, Melbourne Film Festival. It's Toronto, Hot Docs. It's been going everywhere. And they mostly have gone to the openings.
Oh, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
Must be such a buzz because you guys put so much time, energy and heart and soul into this project. And of course the families that you followed. For how long? How long were you following the families?
Well, the actual filming, I mean, it was kind of weird. The actual filming probably took about 4 yeyears.
Wow.
But there was also a whole thing about searching for the families, looking for the families that would be part of it because Maya wanted to have kids and the kids' point of view, and she didn't want to have older kids, but she didn't want to have kids that were too young to have a view about it.
Yeah. So that's a hard one to actually answer, you know.
So she went around the countryside filming mums and dads and kids and bringing stuff back, and we'd look at it and talk about, well, I don't know if that would work. The key thing was finding a kid who had a story. In other words, who was involved in a situation where they were striving for something that wasn't going to be easy to get.
Right.
And to follow that, and to follow the child's progress, and to see how the parents dealt with that struggle that the kid had, the ups, the downs, and so forth and so on. And we had to find 4 very different kids, because we knew that we could never be entirely representative of the entire gay community. But we wanted to have a variety of situations, both dads and moms and girls and boys, who were facing kind of adulthood with same-sex parents, and who were part of families that were like all families. Because what we wanted to do was this was really made for audiences that aren't convinced. Yeah. That was who our audience was. We weren't really making it for the gay community, but for people that had doubts whether same-sex parents made good parents.
I think you've achieved that so beautifully, and you haven't had to do anything except tell these people's stories. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you've actually had to go, we set out to convince. It's just there's such the human touch and the heart to everybody's story is phenomenal.
Yeah, we didn't want to make a piece of propaganda.
Yeah.
And so that forced us into a situation where we weren't looking for specific kind of pieces of information that supported our particular prejudices.
Yeah.
That we were looking for, the varieties of encounters that parents and children have in any family. and there's sections where the parents are like telling the kid off, and other places where the kid storms off to their room.
They're real parents. It's just like a real family.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it is a real family.
Yeah. Exactly.
And people think that there's another thing. There are other people that a bit like prejudice for both people and things. You know what? They're families. They're human beings. They've got children, and and their children's lives are at stake, and we treat them like they're other. And it's just like. And that's what happens there.
Exactly.
And it was about giving kids a voice too, because in all of the discussion that's been going on about this, at least up until this film, it was all about politicians having their point of view or religious leaders having their point of view. And they're all adults. Some of them who don't even have kids themselves.
And it got banned, by the Newell National Park.
It was banned by the New South Wales Education Department. Thanks to the state minister.
Well, thanks to the state minister, it went viral. That's how I found out about it originally.
And number 4, was it iTunes now?
Currently, it's number 4 on iTunes, going up.
There you go. Love it. Power to the people that say, excuse me, politicians, you can try to ban something, but screw you.
People. You know what? But it's the politicians. They play to the base nature of humanity. So they create hate and
fear.
And fear. And what happens? We all know that. And when you're under stress, your consciousness shrinks and you don't think so well. Right. So we're all guilty of that. But the public is being played like a pipe organ, making everyone hateful, and that's what GitGo is about. We talk about this, but nothing's quite that hard.
Absolutely,
is it?
and we really thank you for coming in and spending so much time with us too, Billy, because this really is such a special project. And we sent Marco to visit Maya and Charlotte in New York City. So Marco's
I haven't seen this yet.
Okay, this is going to be good. We'll come back, and then we'll come back after this. I'm switching at the same time.
All right, so let's play this.
And then we'll get contact with Marco, and we'll have a little conversation as well. Let's have a look at the interview. I haven't seen it either. This is exciting. Let's go. Roll. Oh. I've lost it. Hang on a sec.
Okay, we will get it back.
Pause this.
Sorry, guys.
That's the wrong one anyhow.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
The wrong one up? Okay, sorry, guys. We'll just keep chatting away.
You keep talking to Billy.
Billy and I'll keep talking, and then Bernie, if you can try to get that.
I'll get this.
That would be
going.
great.
Let's pan on to a little two-shot.
This is all planned.
It is.
Okay, you two have.
It is. And you and Bernie also, we'll get back to Gayby Baby as well, but you and Bernie have been working on a film, and that's been an extraordinary process, because you were talking to me about how a lot of filmmakers these days forget about story.
Yeah, well, everything is story. In fact, if you're making a film or writing a screenplay, even then, you have to have a story about why you're making the film or why you're writing the screenplay. And this is where I think a lot of people fall down, is that, I'm writing a screenplay, but when you ask them, why are you writing the screenplay? What is the story behind why you're writing the screenplay? They kind of don't know how to answer it, because they don't have a story about why they're writing it.
But it just seems so crazy to me, because filmmaking is about storytelling. So what, do people get bogged down in the technology of it all, or trying to be clever, or what is it?
Well, because a lot of them are telling stories that they're not tribally connected to. Tribal connection is absolutely essential for anything dramatic, whether it's fictional or factional. Maya can make a film like Gayby Baby because she is tribally connected to, Gaybys all over the world, because she has 2 moms. And so why she's telling the story is because I'm a child of gay parents, and I want to give a voice to people like me who don't have a voice. And that's a really good reason for telling the story. So she has a story about why she's telling the story. You can't really have a reason unless you're trying to exploit or rip off somebody else's business. If you're a rank predator and a filmmaker, then you'll rip anybody off to make a buck. But your story can't be about making a buck, and it can't be about being famous. Those are the 2 things you can never make your story about. Drama hates things about jobs and money. There's always got to be something personal.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why broadcast and filmmaking is failing something chronic, and that's why we have social media. Because you got to do it because you love it, because you're passionate, because you believe, even if you're wrong.
And part of the reason we're here, I guess, I haven't really talked about this with Bernie and Penn, but part of the reason we're here is to say to you guys out there, what we're doing, you can do.
Yeah, oh yeah, you can
know?
do this with a couple
You don't-
iPads.
You don't
and
need,
phones.
yeah, you don't need a huge studio or a grant from the Screen Australia or anything else. Just go and do it.
Do it.
But make
Yes,
sure you have a
go.
story. Make
I
sure you have a
love that,
story.
Billy. I love that. That's a whole thing. You can say anything, but have a story, have a reason.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
And
Okay, we ready to
we've
go
got
to
it.
Marco?
I think so. I think we've got that
yay.
ready. And so, bye.
Let's see how we go.
I think so. Is that the one? 'Cause
G'day, GitGo. We're here in New York. I'm here with the creative team of Gayby. Newell is a director of the film Gayby, and also of Two, which was written by a friend of the show, Billy Marshall Stoneking, and was a judge at this year's at Australia's Tropfest Film Festival in Sydney. Charlotte Mars is a documentary producer and writer-director of fiction. Apart from the success of Gayby, Charlotte was a finalist in her first short film, Awake, at Flickerfest. In 2013, they founded the production company Marla House, Marla being an Australian Aboriginal word for girl. Okay. And they started the documentary Growing Up Gayby in 2014 for ABC2, and then the feature film Gayby, which was released theatrically in 2015 in Australia and just this week here in the US, and in fact in UK and European countries as well.
Yeah, in Ireland.
Okay, Ireland, yeah?
Yeah.
That's a great location to break into. They're trying to discover this as well. Okay, so let's discuss, what I'd like to do is, talk about the film for a little bit. Obviously that's the reason that we're all here. Personal note, I saw the film on Sunday. It was the first film. I bought it on iTunes when I got home that night. It's available on iTunes and Amazon Prime, so buy it this week. It's quite reasonable. It's only about $10 for a HD release. You should charge more. It's a fantastic film. I teared up, I laughed. There's great moments in here, and I even had that little moment of discomfort where you sort of, we're really looking at somebody else's life as close as this? Sort of, you feel like you're inside the door of somebody's house when they don't know you're there. So I think it's a brilliant film. There are several challenges that you took on with it. But maybe before we talk about it, what is the film? If for somebody who's never seen it, how would you describe the film?
So Gayby follows the lives of four 11-year-old children who are, I suppose, all happen to have gay or lesbian parents. But yeah, we're taken on a journey into, I suppose, their worlds as they're exploring their own, as they're traversing oncoming puberty, but also while the rest of the world around them is sort of questioning marriage equality or whether these children are at risk. But yeah, each child has their own story, which in some ways is not related to the gayness of their parents, but that is one sort of element.
So, it's interesting that you have the four stories running through it, but you've managed to weave it into a single film. What were the challenges you faced in pulling it together that way? I guess it's breaking those stories out so that they flow through the film.
Yeah, I think that multi-person narratives have their own kind of challenges, but all films are really hard to put together, particularly an observational documentary. There was like 3 years of footage that we were sort of wrangling over a 1-year period, and that process is going to be hard no matter how many stories you're weaving, I think.
Right.
Probably one of the biggest challenges, I think, is, we didn't want this to be a superficial look at families, and therefore we only chose 4 children so that we really got to spend time with each of those kids and see the world from their perspective. And so, yeah, I suppose that was a challenge to not sort of spread the story thin and really just focus on those kids. Yeah, and I think sometimes when you do weave, and this is something that Billy, who you had on the show previously, was really helpful with, is finding a way for those different characters' lives to kind of reflect, and as a viewer you can kind of get woven through this journey where one character shows you one sort of view and then another shows you another, and you kind of start to piece together a kind of whole picture, or a sort of, I've said that really badly, but basically I think that it's actually kind of a beautiful way to get a range of stories, because what you feel from one character you then get reflected in another. Yeah. And in actual fact, each story kind of builds on the one previous to create a new meaning that is not in either of those stories or something. And Billy Marshall Stoneking is a really wonderful sort of go-to story advice throughout this whole process.
You just said that much better than I was attempting to say it.
But I think in the choice of the children that are in the film, so there's Gus, Ebony, Matt and Graham, and we spent, maybe quite a long time casting and interviewing maybe 30 or 40 kids from all around Australia to select out their stories. And what was really wonderful is that each child's narrative reflects a whole area of, I suppose, concern or questions that some people might have about kids in same-sex families. So Gus's story really speaks to this debate around children, boys in particular, needing to have a father figure around. And Gus's story is really a young boy exploring his masculinity in a female-headed household. And he sort of epitomises, with his love and obsession of worldwide wrestling entertainment, he kind of epitomises everything that, his mums hate about, macho culture, which creates a really interesting conflict within their family structure. Matt's story is sort of about this young boy who is has grown up in a family that is very religious, and he's coming into that age of, rethinking his own, I suppose, relationship to God, and he's thinking, why should I believe in a God if they don't believe in my mother's love? And I think that there's lots of people within the religious community in Australia or all over the world that don't even know that they are losing a whole generation of children of same-sex parents because of their inability to adapt to the changing world and accept their parents' sexuality. I could go on, but anyway, each of the child...
Is it a changing world? Or is it just a better revealed world? It's not like people suddenly appeared out of nowhere or something like that.
Oh, completely. Kids in same-sex families have existed for a very long time before we even had a label for it, I'm sure. So I think you're right in some ways. The family unit, the diversity in family units have always been there, but we're becoming more and more capable of being able to be honest and open about what that looks like.
So you're a Gayby yourself, and you mentioned during the screening earlier this week about being sort of that poster child. So how was that?
Yeah,
Good, bad?
What's really interesting, I think what we did raise at the screening that you went to was that we had a really tricky time, I suppose, at the onset of working out what this film would be, because children in our families, and definitely my generation of queer spawn, have spent a long time kind of having to project a certain image for fear of playing into the prejudices of the outside world, saying that our families are not good enough. And we like to call it poster child syndrome, which is that need to always put on a perfect face. And I think in this film we didn't want to make an ad for gay families. We didn't, I don't think it's helpful for anyone to say that we're perfect, because no family is perfect. And so, but also put us in a tricky position because our family, we're so used to fighting for equality that I suppose you don't want to talk about it when your parent yells at you or when things are sometimes hard. But it was really important to, I suppose, have a real image of a family in this film.
I thought you captured a great moment in the film with the wrestling moment, where, at least my interpretation of it, was that the parents were clearly concerned about it, and the children weren't. Sort of thing, and even to the aspect that the girl had been hurt and was crying and so on. And it's like, we need rules, we need to stop this sort of thing. And the kids were kind of like, we don't really know what they're upset about right now. Or at least that's how I sort of read it off the screen. I don't know if that's what it was like in the film. But as you were choosing the children for this sort of thing, you said you auditioned about 50, and the community helped you out with it. Was there did you have criteria going into it, or was it just a discovery process of wow, yeah, this is what we were looking for?
No, I think it was a bit of a discovery process.
Yeah, I think every film is, if you know what you're making or what you're looking for, then there's no point in making a film, that's why you do it, in a way. I think we knew that all of the kids had this impeccable charisma that we just followed, characters and sort of see where they led the story, or where they wanted it to go, or what was happening in their lives. But like that's the fun part about making films and documentary.
Yeah, we did cast it really wide, and not even just focusing on that age. I mean, we opened it up at the beginning, and we spoke to people of all different ages. And I think, honestly, there comes a point where you have to sit down and go, we could make a film about almost any of these people, really. And it's hard, and you've got to work out, now, how do we fit this into a 90-minute film, and whose stories are going to fit together best. And also, I think you have to answer for yourself. When it comes to representation, we can't possibly tell every story of every same-sex parenting family.
Right.
We can't speak for everyone with this film, and it certainly doesn't. So that's why we kind of decided to focus in on just a few stories and try and tell them really richly. And that was sort of how we came to the point of focusing on 4 in particular.
I think it's an interesting thing though, because we did actually film with probably another 3 families in quite a lot of detail who are not in the film. And not for years or anything, but for a couple of weeks, and those families, we're still in very close communication with, because similarly to the 4 families in the film, I spent a lot of time in their homes, observing their lives, and sometimes those were hard conversations when they weren't right, but I think we all knew, it's really, you've got to have a family
you
have to have a family that wants to be open to being watched all the time, which is really hard. Not everyone wants to do that, even when they've experienced it for a week. Then the child has to have something really happening in their life, that is not everyone, or maybe stories don't develop, or the circumstance and time.
And then it's fitting together within a film as well.
And how it responds to the other stories. And I think, but one thing actually that was raised quite recently that I think is a really nice thing to talk about is that in all of this casting, the one thing that is not in the film is, racial diversity. And I think that there's a lot of kids with families in our community who are from various ethnic backgrounds, because of surrogacy, because of adoption, because of obviously IVF, because of the obviously just the diversity within Australian culture, and obviously that's part of my experience of growing up. It adds a whole other layer that we weren't able to explore in the film. So there's been some hard choices, and when you're making something with representing a community that hasn't really been represented, then it's hard to tell everyone's story. Yeah. But that's, I think, a little regret for us in a way.
Yeah.
Well, it fits into a question I have a little bit later on, but just so I mean, I was fascinated by where they were at the time, and you filmed this in about 2013, was it? You said over a couple of years you were capturing this, and I'm also fascinated where they are now. I used to love the 7 series sort of thing, and I'm just where are they now? What are they up to? So are there any plans to go back and do hey, let's see, now they've hit puberty, right? Now the hormones are running through them, let's see where they are now and how life is going for them.
It's funny, at our very first premiere screening in Toronto, that was the first question we got from any Q&A audience.
Okay.
I think we were there was so much kind of energy. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. They said, I've got this series you should look at. I think we were so kind of full of nervous energy. We weren't, I was just going to say yes to anything at that point. Yeah, great. Actually, I think we took a photo, we said...
After the 9 hours every day in the editing suite or whatever that you're doing...
Tried 5.5 years.
Yeah, it's been a long road, but I think at that point it was also that guy asked that question, have you seen the 7-Up series? And we then said who would actually like to see that? Raise of hands of the audience, and the whole audience put up their hand, and we took this little photo, which was really nice.
Yeah.
I do think it's something people are interested in, and in this film you get really invested in the lives of these families, and they're wonderful, wonderful young people, and a big part of our lives now. I think there's definitely potential.
I mean, there was an audible sigh in the room when I won't give the spoiler away, but somebody's dream does it. Not everything works out exactly how they want it to. And there was an audible noise in the room, but people were like, no, that's not how movies end. And
it'll be so nice to continue or bookend that narrative, because Ebony right now is doing so well. She's such a smart kid. She's planning all these things for her future. She's in a gifted and talented program at her school. I think her school became a performing arts school the year that she went. So it would be lovely to go back and show you, I suppose, what beautiful people those kids have grown into.
The disappointing thing for a lot of people is that Gus no longer loves wrestling as he once did. But,
How can that be? I mean, it was-
well, you can be sure that he's a person who lives with great passion.
Yeah.
So whatever he takes on next in his life, you know that he'll be a compelling person to spend time with.
It would be funny if one of his mums now took up an interest in wrestling.
Wouldn't it?
Going without him. So what did you learn from the kids? I mean, you deliberately tried to show it from their point of view, and I think you pulled that off. I think it's really cool. So you've been with them for a few years. I don't know, were there lessons you learned from them then or since?
I mean, what lessons do you learn from any person that you spend a lot of time with? I think that, for me, I learned just how sometimes I think we disregard children because we think that they're young and they're innocent or they're naive or maybe they don't see things that adults do. But I feel especially about these 4 kids and now more so about children in general that they have a lot of agency and wisdom. And as Max says in the film, sometimes kids have better ideas than adults. And I think that is often true. I think that children have a beautiful sense of morality and way of seeing the world which may be simplified but is also, right from wrong. And I think sometimes adults can lose sight of that.
And I would say, I would agree with that. I definitely feel the same way. And I also think I learned a lot from their parents, actually. This film is also very much a film about parenting.
Yes.
And spending all that time with 8 very different parents, I feel like, as someone who doesn't have kids yet, I kind of have taken different things from all of them into the kind of parent that I want to be. And the way that they communicate with their children to me is truly beautiful. And in these families, the space of negotiation and communication is really flat, it's really level. Kids and parents, we're all in this together. That's what I learned from them, and I thought that was really beautiful.
So in terms of the editing of it, you expose the families to the edits and they had an influence. I mean, most directors fight for final cut on their films and things like that. They sort of work through their career, and yet you sort of, I don't know, did you give it away in that sense, or how did that come about? That's a very unusual approach to filmmaking.
It just depends, I suppose, how you see the creative process, and I think for us, it's a collaborative process. It's not one person having the top of the hierarchy and the last say, like you say, the last cut. I think that's a really troublesome way of seeing creation or art. And what was really lovely, and I think what we're realising is quite rare in the travelling with the film, is that, we invited the families to watch a number of cuts throughout the edit, and to really have some feedback and say and consultation in deciding how they wanted to be represented.
Was there much pushback? I mean,
it's not so much, I think, about them going, oh my god, I hate that bit, can you change it? Although, I think there were small things like that we, of course,
can you show me from the other side, please? Or something like that.
But it's actually just a moment to sit down and watch it while it's being developed, while you still have the power to change it if you need to, and talking through things that make you uncomfortable, or, getting a deeper sense of what it means to share very intimate moments with an outside world. And it's more about process than it is about, can you take that out, or that's really full on, or I don't want me yelling at the child there, or whatever that is.
It's not as if it was filmed in a vacuum too. It's like they were very much, they understood what was being filmed, and you then get to kind of, and the stories too that we're sort of have identified within each of the families, they were kind of quite aware of that. And so we never wanted it to be like a shock. You suddenly sit down and it's like, that's what you've been filming for all this time? So we didn't want that. And also, just on a, human-to-human level, there were some times where they'd have really great comments that could help us make the film better too.
Totally.
And it wasn't so much about, making changes to the film creatively as much as, how to enrich it and make it stronger. And, it really made it. I actually really think it made it.
I think in the creative thing, lots of you know, directors and producers can get very cagey about, you know, this being my stamp. But if you create with the idea of sort of, abundance and like, oh, what can they add? What can we all contribute? How can we make this better? You're not guarding your idea. You're just going, how can we all make this something we're proud of? And as a result, all of the kids are really proud of this film. You know, when we had our premiere at Sydney Film Festival, all the kids were there for the first time. They bounded up to the front of the stage and participated in the Q&A. And I think Graham was running along the front row of the crowd going, I'm Graham, like, would you like to ask me any questions? And it was just so beautiful.
Is beautiful. It was such a beautiful film. How was that for you, Billy, watching that for the first time?
They're fantastic, Charlotte and Maya. You know, they've made an extraordinary film, and I love the way they feel about the people that they work with, both the talent and the crew, the limited crew that they had, because I think that they're prepared to sacrifice their own egos for the sake of story, and to not, to climb down off this kind of weird pedestal that a lot of young filmmakers get onto and think, I'm important, I'm directing this thing. I mean, I don't know how many people do that, but I know that a film like this does not happen every day.
Yeah.
And so, you think, well, it comes out of an attitude and a confidence about story that you won't get that sort of film if you don't have that kind of generosity of spirit that they've had.
I think it's a really great point. And when Marco was interviewing them, and we'll talk to Marco in a minute, the way they talked about allowing the kids and the parents to to make changes. Also, I mean, that's almost unheard of in filmmaking.
It's really, really important for a film like this that you involve the people whose stories you're telling. You can't really do it. You can't be at arm's length. You can't be a predator. You can't.
No.
It just doesn't work.
No, exactly. It's really all about, as you say, the layers and the depth and the egolessness. That's why it's so special, because even though maybe as a viewer they're not things I could articulate as such, but now that you're talking about it, I'm like, okay, that's what I'm picking up in my gut.
Yeah.
It's why it's special. And funny. I mean, I was killing myself laughing at some of the things. And did you go out to, was that something you were conscious of to make it funny?
No, the kids did that all by themselves, but of course in the edit you try to be mindful of the whole rhythm and pacing and timing of the way the images and the words are coming at you off the screen.
Okay, we got Marco.
Oh, good. We've got Marco to talk to more about. Hey, Marco.
Hi, GitGo. How are you all?
Oh, very, very good. We love the interview.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good stuff.
Thank you. Aren't they great people?
They're extraordinary. They're
amazing in the film, and they're still out there sort of trying to change the world. It's very cool.
So, Marco, what's the vibe in the States? I mean, have you been getting much feedback about the film?
So they've had, it was covered by New York One, which is a sort of local news channel here in New York City for the release. They got interviews for that. And where they've been promoting it is a place called The Centre. That's where we interviewed them, down on West 13th Street, which is an LGBT centre sort of thing for a support place, just in the Chelsea area.
Okay.
And it's quite amazing to sort of see the community step up. We were at I got to see them at the screener on Sunday, and it's a great audience, and you just hear people. It's always good to be with an audience and hear them sort of laugh and sigh when things don't quite work out, and like me, I'm just fidgeting in the chair when it gets a little too personal or a little too sort of like you're thinking, should I really be in? I want to watch this.
Exactly, Billy. Billy's having a giggle here. I'd love to get your reaction.
No, I love squirming. I love people squirming in chairs. I think you have to have that kind of identification with characters, that you feel, that you're intersecting with them at the level that they're at, and that's a level that sometimes, you personally might not go to, not in an unwitting kind of way, but there you are sitting in a theater and suddenly something happens and you go, oh my goodness me, You know, I love the quiet truths that leak out of the actions in this film. That's what I love about it. I think you must have experienced that yourself.
I completely agree, and you know that was sort of part one of the interview. That was the longest piece of the interview. They were really generous with their time, and we have, over the next 2 weeks, we'll show you part two, where we're going to just talk a little bit about, you know, the reality of this in society and the best guide in Australia, and why, you know, what a stupid idea that is, and the things that are sort of happening there, as well as the things that are obviously happening here in America. And then in the third week, it turns more into a little bit of an industry chat of just how did they get the film off the ground, how did the funding work, and things like that. They stuck with us the whole time. It was really cool. And in fact, we left them wired up by mistake when they went out. We're using Bluetooth lavaliers for this, and they actually they had to race off to the next appointment, and then they came racing back to give us the microphones back before they raced off to the next appointment. Yeah. So they're lovely people.
Yeah, and I could see there, Marco, you know, you were warming up to, that's your first interview ever.
You did great.
And you warmed up to it, and they warmed up to you. The body language shifted. It was awesome. Really good.
Yeah.
Really good work, man.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
That might have been the packet of Tim Tams that they gave.
Tim Tams, I'll fix everything. Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Marco,
It was really, I'm glad you liked it. It was a really great interview. You know, we'll have to work out, you know, when other Australians are over here, that we can do more of that sort of thing, and just give them coverage, give them support while they're here.
Yeah.
And I probably said it a lot during the interview, but you know, the film's available here now. I bought it myself on iTunes. It's only $10 for a HD film. And we had, actually, it's great in next week as a bit of a tease that they're actually educating me a little bit in the community, and there were some acronyms I hadn't heard before, and I sort of described it as a great Mother's Day movie, and because Mother's Day is next Sunday here as well as there.
You're hilarious.
I had to go to the movies then, and this is a very human movie. I didn't think of it, but they sort of pushed back a little bit on the Mother's Day, that they weren't necessarily comfortable with Mother's and Father's Day, because that's a little bit exclusionary, and you know, we should just go for Parents' Day.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
the
great.
next week's interview is where I get schooled, basically. I get which is great.
I'd like to see you get schooled, Marco. That's something to be a very rare thing, I think.
But your lovely open mind and warm heart and humble spirit will take that grilling beautifully, I reckon, or schooling beautifully.
You clearly don't know me very well, Penny.
Hey Marco, I know you through the screen, so of course I know you, right?
We've spent a lot of time together writing music and stuff, so we know. Yeah. That was great.
It was awesome, Marco. Thank you so
Fantastic,
much.
guys.
Anything else going on in New York City you should let us GitGo folks in Australia know about?
Well, I'll do one very quickly. I was going to sort of do the opening here that I was thinker than you thought I am, or whatever. I'll try and hold this up to the screen, but this was the headline in the newspaper here.
Can you believe it? He is. I love it.
God, Marco.
You know, I just saw a thing, Marco. That Hillary, she's got 12 FBI agents onto her, and if you had 12 FBI agents onto you, it's 99.99% you're going to go down, right? But and it could be in the next 6 weeks. And the plan is, they're saying that from the Democratic Party that there's no way they're going to go for Bernie no matter what, right? Oh. So they're going to go Joe Biden. If they go Joe Biden... Oh,
we've just lost Marco.
We've just lost him. It's all right, my battery's run out
on my
cameras.
Out. Okay.
See you, Marco.
Bye, Marco. Love you long time.
Yeah.
Tune in for you next week for the second part of Gayby Baby.
Okay.
Sorry, Bern. Do we need to head off?
We probably do.
Okay.
Let's get a little closer going. But,
all right, we'll get the closer
anyhow,
going.
They reckon they're going to go. They reckon that...
Never happened.
Yeah.
Never happened.
What do you reckon's going to happen?
They won't go for Joe Biden. They won't do anything.
They won't. No, everyone hates Joe Biden.
She won't be. She won't be knocked off.
She won't be.
No.
And it's just the whole thing is just.
But whether or not she wins the general
shit show, really.
I am always wary of this. When the two women were talking to the guy before the Titanic sailed, they said, "Oh, what if it sinks?" And a sailor from the boat said, "My good women, not even God could sink this ship." So I've always been rather dubious about this kind of overconfidence.
Yes.
I think America fundamentally is a fascist country, and I think that they may very well warm to having one of their own in the White House.
Wow, what an incredible way of saying it, and only an American could say that. Seriously, Billy, fascists in this, in this kind of masked democratic cloak. I reckon you're onto something. So you reckon, unfortunately. So you think Donald's going to do it?
I hope to hell he doesn't.
Oh, God, yeah. He's so close, though.
But I think it's possible. I think it's much more possible than anyone in the mainstream media is giving him credit.
I think so. I'm starting to think he's a hot favourite because if Hillary goes down for the FBI or gets, they're not going to go for Bernie, and they're going to put up Joe Biden. Apparently, is the word inside, and no one's going to vote for Joe Biden because he's universally hated. So they'll go for.
Oh my God.
Donald Trump is in.
It just goes from bad to worse. But anyway, at least we've got Marco over there.
We had Tony Abbott. Come on, you know.
That's true. That's true.
Things couldn't get much worse than that.
Oh, how about Malcolm Turnbull?
They would
wow.
And they did.
He's worse.
He's just a smiling assassin, and we're right.
Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you so much. See you next week. And a big shout out to Jamie Lover too.
And Quentin.
And Quentin, yes, Quentin, thank you. We'll talk to you next week, Q-Man. Bye.
My mix of shit.
It's all right. We love you long time. Ciao, ciao.